I'm going to try to go through this quick and just show what my process is all about working with these samples. So here I'm in the Yeah Dude sample kit right now. And I just got finished making this instrumental. And so I kind of want to just show you what I kind of did here to create this, how I manipulated the samples, how I added to them to kind of take what was there and make my own original creation. So just walking through here, got this sample. Yeah. Okay. Great. So basically I took that and I just dropped that right into my beat. So I'm gonna solo that. And this is where the foundation is, where the inspiration comes from. Just that first sample there. So immediately, obviously I want to have that be the driving force of my beat, but I don't want to have that just kind of constant throughout. So the first thing that I did was I just took the same sample, and here in Sound Toys Filter Freak, you could do this in a regular EQ too, but I just took it and I made a bandpass filter. So so that just gives it a little bit of a different sound. So now basically I'm separating it out into like my hook and my verses. So, I'm formatting this just so that it has 3 verses. It's going to start with an intro. An intro is going to be similar to the hook sound. And then my hook that's going to bring it back right there. So now I just have the same sample twice. Okay. So for me, when I have a sample, the one thing that I really want to add to it is just my own twist on it. So basically I just took the notes that are in the sample and I played them back in this little music box here. And as you can tell if you're listening in stereo, I just added a pan to it. Again, I'm in Sound Toys, just the pan going back and forth. Now the reason I did that is because that adds depth. Once you put those two together, so now there are times where I drop this out, but for the most part, I'm leaving that in there underneath the sample when it changes. Great, so now I have the sample, I added a little depth to it, and I add a little bit more to it because I wanted that to just sound a little more scary. So I'll show you what I did here. This instrument, same thing, same notes, not really changing the feel that was in the original sample, just adding my own flavor to it. It's a little ghosty bell here. And this one I left in the center. I didn't pan this one. All right. So the next thing that I wanted to add is my bass line. And I kind of just freestyled this bass line. I wanted to make it different in the different sections of the song. It's still ominous. I want that ominous feel. You can see in here the notes. So it's not the exact same pattern as you go in the different sections of the song. Very similar, So the key is B minor. My root of that bass line is going to be the B. But I'm just switching it up. So I'll show you here. Now I'm just adding subtle stuff. So basically I just wanted something to add some feel to it. And this is just essentially like a flute sound, flute synth. So, and I'm just adding that. You know, again in my root note of B. You know, so that's everything together. Just taking a look here. So I had that root note, that B flute. And now, the next thing that I want to do is I want to differentiate my hook. So I want to have something that's going to work against that sample in a counter rhythm, have its own little melody. Again, everything that I'm doing, you know, I'm adding subtle layers. A lot of producers, they don't have as many layers. You know, my style in particular, I just like to have a lot of layers and depth, you know, even if it's just one note. You know, so again, I'm just gonna add elements here, just all in that B. So here I have this like little warpy sound. All right. And I'm just gonna add a little more here. Yeah, so this is like a destroyed vibraphone sound, you know, and as you can see here, you know, again, one note throughout. That's how you add the subtleness. You know, really, I'm not looking to really add too much complication. I really just want depth in here. So as you can notice, like, I'm not making things too complicated. So this is something that I do a lot in some of my beats is I try to add rhythm where I can using my synth sounds, but not really going heavy on the notes. So right here, this is everything that I have composed so far without the sample. So that in and of itself could be its own beat. You know, ideally when you're working with the sample, you don't want the sample to run it. You know, you want that to be the inspiration and the foundation. But ultimately, you're creating your own piece of music based off of that foundation. You know? So I got like basically one more melodic element here that I wanted to add. And that, I just sampled a guitar and kind of phased it out here. Again, not trying to get too complicated in terms of what I'm adding here. And there you go. So essentially I have all of like the melodic elements, all the musical elements of the song. Now what's really gonna make the beat work is the beat. So, you know, I'm gonna kind of take you through my ideas as I kind of came up with this with this drum pattern to complement the beat here. And so I'm going to take out the rest of this just so we can kind of focus on the drums here. And so I'm just going back to just the sample. So a lot of the time for me, really the most important part of that drum line that I'm doing, particularly for these, you know, this is going to be probably in the hip hop genre. So what I want to do is I want to create something that's going to be interesting in terms of the hi-hat. So that's where I put my focus on. So right here, I got my hi-hat. So the next thing that I realized after I had that is, like, in terms of making it interesting, I knew I wanted to have a breakdown, kind of what they call a turnaround, right before the hook of the song. So I kind of simple as that. Okay. And of course, you know, got to have your claps, your snares. For me, I actually added an extra hi-hat underneath the snare just to add depth to that. And then I added this snare in here. So for me, my process, and everybody's a little different. My process is I usually do the kicks. When I'm creating a drum pattern, I do the kicks last. And when I'm doing the kicks, I want the kicks to complement my bass line. So I'll turn on the bass line when I'm writing my kick patterns. And lastly, another thing is, like, so I had that turnaround here. I wanted to have something different. I also want to add something different when it comes time for the hook to come in. So one simple thing that I did was I just tuned down a close hi-hat. Now, I'll show you one little trick that I have. So here, if you look at this, this is my quantize, right? So as I'm creating each of these lines, I want to have what they call swing in it. So I don't want it to be static, choppy, sounding too robotic. So there's this little feature here that says you can randomize it, 5, 6, 7 ticks. So I'll highlight something after I paint it in my drum programmer, and I will randomize so that it's not exactly landing in the right spot and it just has a little more feel to it. Found a nice cymbal sample, and then just this little downshifter sound effect. And that's it, So, that's the creation of the beat from start to finish. Just going through layering, taking that original sample, that original inspiration, and just adding to it, adding depth, but not making it too complicated. I'm not trying to confuse the listener. I'm not trying to create like an orchestra. So if you notice, a lot of the stuff that I added was just one note, two notes. Yeah, and so basically that's it. And then what I did at the end, just to make it interesting, is I kind of just stripped it away. And I just ended with those first two elements that I added to the original sample. And there you go, that's a beat.